86.
The Deputy Prime Minister will cease interjecting.
And a rolling set of prices, Mr. Speaker.
Stand by three.
Estimates hearings are underway. We're currently doing 4 estimates hearings at any one time. They usually start at 9 in the morning and finish about 11 at night. While we're also doing that, we're also doing the House of Reps chamber.
7 on, back to 6.
The Parliament provides our funding so that we can record all the material here in Parliament House. This is quite important from a National Archives point of view, so that we can keep all the material into the future and we can make that available to people for generations to come.
Why is that necessary? Because
Currently in our back captured library we contain about 80,000 hours worth of broadcast material of chambers, committees, special events, things like that.
What are we going back through? 5?
Speaker, a handout, Mr. Speaker. Of course it does.
Members
Mr.
on my
Speaker.
left.
Behind us here, what we've got is the House of Reps control room, where we're actually recording question time and broadcasting it around the country. Within the systems that we have around the building, we've got about 43 robotic cameras, and they can be repositioned to various locations around the building, for example, the Great Hall for special events. These are traditionally our busiest times of the year just because of the amount of workload that we have to produce from 9 in the morning to 11 at night every single day for 4 hearings every day. So we do about 400 hours over the 2 weeks.
Take it to the chamber.
The Leader
And
of
the
the
right
Opposition will
starts
resume
at
his
the
seat.
top.
Members on my right, members on my left, members on both sides. Mr. Speaker.
Time has concluded.
Budget estimates are back.
The budget, it will be back on the agenda when Parliament resumes in the next fortnight.
So, Steve, it's Senate estimates, and I've always wondered why it's called estimates, what they're estimating.
It's weird, isn't it? Exactly. What are they estimating? Well, it's actually a bit of a historical term in some ways. It refers to estimates of budget expenditure. This is basically part of the budget process and scrutiny process. So what they're looking at is exactly how the government of the day, executives, top officials and others are spending government money, how they're spending taxpayer money. And it all happens, well, pretty much in committee rooms along here, a series of senior public servants lined up to be grilled by both government and opposition senators who want answers about exactly what is being spent, how and why.
That's what broadly aware means in public service speak. Yes, Minister speak.
It's a powerful mechanism, particularly for oppositions, to hold governments of the day to account, but also to hold the senior bureaucracy to account.
And that's obviously the opposition's aim. They are trying to get the biggest, most explosive revelations out there. The government's aim is to make Senate estimates as boring as possible.
That's right. If it's 2 weeks of us all sitting at the computer, staring at our screens, waiting for a revelation, none coming, success as far as the government's concerned. The opposition wants to see news story after news story, explosive revelation after explosive revelation. That's exaggerating a little bit, but just only a little bit.
You're going to give them half an hour?
I am.
That's very generous.
And then the Greens for half an hour. Whilst we're sorting
All
that,
right.
Senator Van, I'm
trying
sure
to do a
you
deal
won't
here.
take the full half hour, so
No, don't
over
take
to
the
you.
full half hour.
Australia's very lucky to have Senate estimates.
It's a privilege to sit and watch literally 2 weeks of endless, often boring testimony because the repetitiveness is the point. It's that delving into the detail that's so valuable, and that's why it's such a great time and often a fascinating time for journos as well.
Budget estimates is proving to be a rich vein for opposition senators.
So the audit office fault, isn't
The
it?
Commonwealth paid almost $30 million for a plot of land near the Western Sydney Airport in 2018.
A later valuation found that this land was only worth $3 million.
So pretty quickly this sitting fortnight, a theme started to emerge. It was all about integrity, about how taxpayers' money is spent, and also the public expectations that come with that. And it all kicked off with what's become known as the Leppington Triangle.
Yeah, it sounds like a place that you'd find fairies, isn't it, the Leppington Triangle? But it is a place of mystery. How could so much be spent on land that's worth a tenth of what was actually paid? We still don't know. There's lots of investigations how on earth this could have happened. And it triggered a much bigger debate, a broader debate about whether we need oversight on a much bigger scale.
And that was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to different departments and entities and questions around how they spend money. I mean, we heard from Australia Post and their decision to spend quite a lot of money on some Cartier watches as well too. That wasn't nearly as much as what was spent on the Leppington Triangle, but it seemed, I think, to hit home with people. People can understand the cost of a watch, but can't really comprehend the cost of land and how much money was wasted there.
Australia Post's leadership is in disarray tonight. Calls for the Australia Post chief executive to stand aside.
Quite a strong reaction from the Prime Minister. Outrage, shock, disappointment at the Cartier watches being gifted to senior staff.
They got watches.
And what were the watches?
They were a Cartier watch of about value of $3,000 each.
And then there was this debate, you know, the Australia Post chief executive saying this wasn't taxpayers' money, we are a commercial organisation. That seemed to infuriate the Prime Minister, who said he was shocked and appalled, and then within hours Christine Holgate had been stood aside and an investigation is underway.
So appalled and shocked was I by that behaviour. She's been instructed to stand aside. And if she doesn't wish to do that, Mr Speaker, she can go.
The great irony about what happened with the Cartier watches is that this was a reward which, if given in cash or something else, not Cartier watches, we might not have even been hearing about it. Now, in fact, the executives that sealed this deal for Australia Post to get 3 of the big 4 banks doing their services inside Australia Post, they delivered a bonanza, not only for Australia Post worth $65 million, but they delivered something that was really, really worthwhile for all of those licensees.
There wasn't much outrage over the amount of extra thank you and bonus payments handed out over the past year while COVID-19 has been part of our lives. We saw most of those bonuses handed to senior staff, whereas posties who are on the front line and those that are in those warehouses sorting the mail, they got about $600 each, whereas people at the top end that were sitting in offices that were very safe were getting a lot more than that.
The Chief Executive of Australia Post has quit after it was revealed she approved the purchase of Cartier watches for senior executives worth $20,000.
And then after all of that, there was still more to come because we learned that there was an expenses review underway at ASIC, the corporate regulator, the watchdog. The chair is standing aside while that's underway and the deputy chair has stood down.
This one almost took your breath away, isn't it? The guys, the regulators who are meant to be ensuring that every corporate is behaving was, on the face of it, not behaving appropriately when it came to expenses.
And just like in the case of the Leppington Triangle, this was picked up by the Auditor General, who's had a very busy fortnight.
Well, he's had actually a stellar year, Jade. He's had sports rorts, he's had Leppington Triangle, and now he's got ASIC in his sights.
It's been a long farewell. Simply to say thank you on behalf of the committee for your service to this committee, the Parliament and your country.
This is my last occasion that I'll be with you in this room, but I'll continue to watch your work from afar.
Well,
the last estimates.
Mathias, how does it feel? You're almost a free man.
Oh, it's been a great job. I've given it my best, but yes, today was the last time. 17 estimates in opposition, 21 in government. It's not a bad innings.
You're the longest serving finance minister Australia's ever had. It's a job that is effectively Dr. No. It's made even more difficult by the fact that you come and live from the other side of the Nullarbor. Has that been a really difficult balancing act?
Look, it's a bit more nuanced than being Dr. No. I mean, I think, as finance minister, you want to ensure that the government is able to deliver on its policy priorities in the best, most efficient, most effective way possible, and you want to make sure that the limited resources available to government are appropriately prioritised, that you spend as much as necessary and as little as possible. But it's not a matter of saying no, it's a matter of saying, well, if this is what we want to achieve, how do we best go about it in the most cost-effective way? I mean, essentially in a normal year, and this 2020 has not been a normal year, but in a normal year, from the middle of January to the middle of December, I'm essentially away from Perth and on the East Coast every week, and that's a lot of time away from home, no question. But I've loved it.
Yeah, go on then.
I'm off.
Is this your pitch for the Belgian vote?
I've long had a...
Oh my God, a Tintin watch as well. I mean, this is a side of Mathias Cormann that we didn't really know.
It is unacceptable. I mean, it was appalling. As father of daughters, I could only shudder at the thought that any woman, Australian or otherwise, would be subjected to that.
So this was a really awful story that emerged, that a group of women transiting through Doha's international airport were subjected to what's been described as invasive internal examinations after a newborn baby was found in the airport terminal.
I think what's most disturbing about this is it happened at the beginning of October and we've only found out recently. And even though the Australian government has known since the 2nd or 3rd of October, they haven't actually spoken to any of the Australian women that were on that flight from Doha to Sydney. We heard in estimates that they've left that up to the AFP to talk to those women. But what's more, there are questions around whether the Australian government has handled this appropriately.
Minister, how did the Australian government first become aware of the incident?
I understand it was raised with us by passengers on the flight.
And how long ago?
At the time of the flight.
Why should it take the breaking of the story in the mainstream media for this to become an issue on which she would act? And that's still really largely unanswered.
Qatar has now finally offered an apology and suggested those responsible may be prosecuted.
So this past couple of weeks has really been all about the search for answers, whether it's on matters of integrity, how public money is spent, or indeed what happened to Australians in the Middle East.
But we still don't have answers to a lot of those questions. This building, questions are always asked, but politicians can be quite sneaky in their responses, and there are a number of issues that still need to be questioned and pushed on in the weeks ahead.